WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, there's another event happening where folks can get together and chat politics. It's being hosted by WDET. Stay tuned for the show to hear WDET's Jerome Vaughn give us the rundown.
But first, on the Metro. On Sunday, tragedy hit several community members and their families in Detroit. 19 people were wounded and 2 were killed due to a pop-up block party shooting happening early that morning. Days later, Mayor Mike Duggan spoke at a press conference about violence at block parties.
In the 3 days starting with July 4th, we had shootings at 6 separate illegal block parties, 3 homicides, and 24 other shooting victims. 27 victims at 6 illegal parties. And what makes this especially tragic is the progress that we've made. You've all reported the record reduction in violence in 2023. The first 6 months of 2024 through June, again, we've seen huge reduction in homicides and shootings and carjackings, largely through the efforts here. But in 1 week, in the first week of July, what we are seeing threatens to undo years of progress, and we are saying today that we're going to act to address it.
In fact, violence in Detroit has gone down starkly both over the past few decades and in more recent years. Bridge Detroit reports that as of June 24th, 81 fewer non-fatal shootings and 22 fewer homicides happened compared to the same point in 2023. But following Sunday's shooting, the third mass shooting in Detroit since June 1st, the city is cracking down on what it calls pop-up block parties. Mayor Duggan said the city will roll out an 80-officer patrol unit and faster responses to 911 reports of neighborhood issues. But what are Detroiters making of both the violence and the city's response to it? We have 2 Detroit residents here to discuss it. Starting with Sandra Turner-Handy. She's the president of the Denby Neighborhood Alliance. Sandra, welcome to the Metro.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we're also joined by George Preston, who's the president of the Mohican Regent Resident Association, where Sunday's mass shooting occurred. George, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with you, George, since you are someone coming from the affected neighborhood. How is your community and a block club reacting to what occurred?
You know, normally this is even though we have that reputation being in zip code 48205, in this particular pocket of that community, we are normally a quiet neighborhood. So this totally caught all of us completely off guard. I listen to and I study the crime data in our neighborhood, and I do normally feel pretty safe over here. But again, these types of things does happen here as it has happened in other places. So we're disheartened by what happened, but now we have to sit down and look at where do we go from here.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working with the community.
Yeah. Sandra, I want to give you the same opportunity since I'm sure a lot of different communities are reacting and have their thoughts. So before we just get into specific questions, I want to give you an opportunity also to react.
I just want to support what George said because we work so closely together. We are recipients of one of the city's community violence intervention grants, and we have been working so hard to make sure that we bring down our fatal and non-fatal shootings in 5 areas here in 48205. George leads our radio patrol, which is out patrolling and was out patrolling that night until 10 o'clock at night. Then, of course, the block party happened after those hours. But we have been working diligently to bring down those numbers in our community, and it has so far been a good turnaround. Our neighbors are committed and invested, and they are the eyes and ears that are helping us to bring down crime in these communities.
It's one of the reasons we're bringing you both on here. And George, cycling back to you, just hearing that you were evening out that evening, but of course the shooting still happens. Do you have any insight? What did the community members, the people who are living in your area, say they need in order to help curtail this? What are you guys looking for in this moment?
Well, now, we are, as a community patrol, we ride around the neighborhood just trying to be the eyes and ears, as Sandra mentioned, and all we do is observe and report. We don't get involved in anything. If we see things abnormal, then we'll report it to the appropriate agency, and for the most part, we'll notify the police department, and then they'll respond. But this is one that, although we were out up until 10 o'clock that night, our community patrol, we didn't spot that one, but I guess evidently it escalated as the night went on. And then after what happened again, now we're just looking at what we can do to impact it. So we're going to meet with the Block Club. We're going to talk to the people in the community about what we can do as a community to impact any other problems that might pop up in our neighborhood, and also what we can do as a result of what has happened the other evening.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, George, community members can only do so much. You can't respond to violent threats, which leads us to the announced response. One of the things that has been mentioned is increasing police patrols to stem violence, including specifically an 80-officer patrol unit, as well as calling responses to these kind of pop-up events and block parties Tier 1 responses. Sandra, is that something that you and community members you've spoken to are in alignment with? Is that consistent with what you think people would like, or what is your response to what you've heard from the city about how they want to move forward?
Definitely, as one of the participants at the mayor's press conference, I am glad to hear that we are increasing the number of officers that will be patrolling, looking for these pop-up block parties, because we have no way now with their sophisticated way of direct messaging our young people to attend these parties, where we're not getting that information. So prior to the shooting, we did have officers out literally going through the neighborhood, finding these pop-up block parties throughout the city, Friday and Saturday night. In fact, our officers here in the 9th were literally shutting down a block party where a shooting had occurred and got the call for this block party. So our neighbors are doing exactly what we're asking them to do. If you see something, say something. So they did call 911. 911, after getting so many calls on this, were able to contact those officers, but they were busy shutting down another party and couldn't send officers over because of the limited number. These 80 additional officers will allow for us to be at more than one scene at a time if necessary. And the fact that the mayor and the chief of police have now made these block parties a priority one, meaning when they get calls to 911, it has now been escalated for immediate attention to be placed on these calls.
Yeah. We're speaking with Sandra Turner-Handy, the president of the Denby Neighborhood Alliance, as well as George Preston, who's the president of the Mohican Region Resident Association, where the shooting occurred over the weekend, getting their insight into the events from the weekend.
Indeed, indeed. And Sandra and George, this is Tia Graham talking with you right now. And just a little bit of understanding here. I just want to know how long both of you all have been in that particular area or been in those communities. I'll start with you, Sandra.
I have been a resident over in the 48205 area for 26 years.
Wow. George?
And I've lived on my block for 39 years, and I'm approximately about 7 or 8 blocks from where the incident happened.
Wow. Okay. So this is once again open to both of you. I think about just being in the community, growing up with block parties, and the concern of the possibility of over-policing or preventing block parties from happening at all, the red tape, any things like that. So do you see that being a possibility, or what ways do you see the community working better with the police force here in the city of Detroit in order to get the block parties more safe?
Well, we've always had a good rapport with our neighborhood police officers. They come to our community meetings where we discuss any issue or concern that we might have, and they're hand-in-hand working with the community. Now, one of the things that we are going to do now in my community, we're going to meet with our block club members, and we're going to explain to them the procedure that they have to go through if they want to have a block party. Because, again, the police department is not stopping a barbecue in the backyard or anything like that. These are things that happen, and these are safe events. But when they start having these block parties, again, we want to know, number one, and we want the police to be aware, because then they can be there to give it special attention to make sure that it doesn't reach these large numbers and get out of hand. So, again, this is what we're going to do now, is sit down with the block, each block, and talk to them about the procedure that they must follow in order to have one of these block parties.
Yeah. Sandra?
And yes, what George has said, we recently had our 9th Precinct Community Relations meeting, and our residents were told by our commander here in the 9th about the block parties and the fact if you see these parties escalating or you hear something, call us, let us know, because we're out patrolling for this. It's not about curtailing people having a good time in our community, because we need to enjoy our community, but it's about doing it the proper way. Get a permit for the block party. Notify your MPOs that you're going to have a large family gathering so they can come out. Our neighborhood police officers are at 90% of the events that are occurring in our community, from a block club meeting to a cookout at the park, everything. They're there. They're a part of it. And it helps to keep our residents safe. So even if they have the pop-up parties, the idea, if you have a permit, then you have MPOs and officers riding around in the neighborhood to make sure that residents are safe.
So, Sandra, go ahead, Sandra.
I just wanted to add, too, our police officers, our neighborhood police officers are very active in the community. They are very proactive. They come and sit down and talk with the neighbors firsthand to let them know about the possibilities of problems, and in a proactive way, let them know what they can and cannot do. And if they don't listen, then naturally they have to be reactive. But I just want to emphasize how well they are trying to work with the community so that it doesn't escalate to a point where it's not a we versus you kind of thing. It's all of us working together, police and community working together.
All right. So to both of you again, Sandra and George, I'm going to talk to you both. 26 years for you, Sandra, in the community, 39 years for you, George. You know, just thinking about the relations within the community itself, the neighbors itself, the people who are coming within and out of the neighborhoods. Can you talk about, since the time you've all been there to now, what it's like within the community members and the neighborhoods and the neighbors talking together and getting together to talk about these concerns and fixing some of them?
You know, I just want to say in the Mohican region, we have in our community, now we cover an area, Gratiot, Shaner, 8 Mile to State Fair. There are approximately 60 blocks in that community. We have some blocks where there is no real organization, and we hope to meet with them. We have blocks where there is involvement, but no real organization. And we have neighbors where they're looking out for one another, and they do get involved. You have blocks that are kind of cliquish sometimes. But, again, the goal is to get everybody to be organized and start working with one another. And that's our goal, is to get them to organize themselves within so that they know the neighbors are all communicating with one another, and they're reaching out to us as a larger body. When I say the organization, let us know what's going on in their community. We want to let them know what we're trying to do. Again, we want to get input from everybody in terms of how we can work together, what we can do to improve the quality of life in our neighborhood. As I mentioned, I've been here for 39 years. I don't plan on moving. Things can happen, but I don't plan on moving it. And if I'm going to be here, I want to make a difference. So I'm working to make a positive difference as best I can in the community.
Yeah, it is a community event, as you mentioned, George. I think one thing that I think about or hear about from folks who might have some concerns is, while you guys are developing those relationships with the police, you do also have the memory story of George Floyd still present in people's minds, as well as concerns about over-policing. I've even heard people bringing up stress units. Is this what this new 80-officer patrol unit would look like? So it strikes us that there may be some who are concerned that over-policing could be a result from that. Do you have any thoughts on that you can express, George, in terms of what you see or people who might have that concern?
I think our police chief have emphasized community police engaging with one another. And that's why we have neighborhood police officers. We have police officers. Their responsibility is to come out and work strictly with the community. They're both proactive and reactive, as I said, but they are working with the community. When we have our community meetings, they are there to listen to the issues and concerns. So if we're developing that type of rapport with our police department, we're talking with one another. So that is going to eliminate that problem of the over-policing. So I think because of their involvement beforehand, it'll eliminate the issues that you might have afterwards. So I think we're working together very well. Yeah. We have a very committed department.
Before we get out of here, and Sandra, I want to offer this probably up to both of you. The history of the block party, I've heard this described as such, but I remember the block party as, again, you get the police involved, you pay your $75, you block off the street. Very important to developing community in the neighborhood. That's a little bit different than what we're talking about with these pop-up events, as you guys have already mentioned. So let's just talk about the best ways to throw a quality block party. You've got the experience. Sandra, what are your recommendations on how to get the block party going?
My recommendation is, and the key word is pop-up. Yeah. That should not happen. In order to throw a proper block party is to get your permit. Mm-hmm. Pay the few dollars that you need to pay so that you can ensure your community, your neighbors, the children in your area are safe from harm and danger, because you are putting safety parameters around the event to make sure that everyone has a good time and everyone returns to their home at night. Yeah. And it's very simple to do it the right way.
George, any final thoughts? I'm going to give you the last word. Go ahead.
Yes, again, we encourage the neighbors to make friends, have fun, build trust with one another, be sensitive to ethnic and generational issues, trying to work together, identify things that might cause deterioration in the neighborhood, sit down and talk about it, and then work it out with how you're going to coordinate this party. And then I think if they're working together, I think it's going to be fine. And one thing Sandra mentioned, these pop-up parties, a lot of those are people coming from outside the community. We're encouraging communities to work within their community. You might have outside people that are coming in, which is okay too. But again, if we're working and talking together and organizing, things hopefully will work out fine.
George Preston, president of the Mohican Regent Resident Association, and Sandra Turner Handy, president of the Denby Neighborhood Alliance. Thank you both so much for joining us on the Metro.
Again, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Coming up, we'll talk about what's going on with the Ann Arbor Art Fair, which is taking place next week. Stay right there.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET, here live from Detroit, where people are talking so much about the rising art community that we have here. It's making a name for itself. We're loving what's happening here, but we're not the only people, Tia, not the only city in the region that's doing its thing with art.
No, Detroit is not. We have another city not too far from the city of Detroit that's going to do all things art. And that is happening July 18th through July 20th. It is the Ann Arbor Art Fair, which is the largest juried art fair in the nation, bringing together almost 1,000 artists. Every year, the fair features not just Michigan-based artists, but creators from around the country and the world, and guests can experience live demonstrations and new activities being introduced this year. A key feature of the Ann Arbor Art Fair is the New Art, New Artists program, helping students promote, sell, and develop their work as professional artists. To talk about the Ann Arbor Art Fair, we're joined by Jake Block. He's a former member of the NANA, or the New Art, New Artists program, and is back at the art fair showcasing his work. Jake, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello. Also joining the show is the executive director of the Ann Arbor Art Fair, Angela Klein. Angela, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
So, Angela, we're going to start with you. What makes the Ann Arbor Art Fair so unique?
Well, this is our 65th year. We've been around since 1960. The Ann Arbor Art Fair is comprised of 3 nonprofit art fairs. Our art fair is the Ann Arbor Street Art Fair, the original. There is the State Street District Art Fair, and there is the Ann Arbor Summer Art Fair. And we all come together to create the Ann Arbor Art Fair.
And in particular, I was going through the rundown. There were new features I did see. I would love if you could highlight some of the features this year that visitors can participate in, but also go into the Kids Art Fair, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the Art Activity Zone, we have the Creative District, we have all kinds of different activities that are all ages. So the Detroit Institute of Art comes and they do amazing activities. And then we have events like Chalk the Walk with David Zinn. We have wonderful activities for all ages. And then the Youth Art Fair is its first debut to the actual fair. So that's grades 4 through 12. And they are here to not only exhibit their work, but they sell it and they keep all of the proceeds. And it's a 100% free program to Michigan students.
I was going to say, well, we see little mini artists, and we will, and that is so super cool that they get to be right alongside the adult artists, professional artists, and they get to see their works right there. So that's really, really interesting.
Yes.
Angela, just since 2006, the Ann Arbor Art Fair has also offered the New Art, New Artists program. We have one of the featured artists here today, Jake Block, who we'll chat with a little bit later. But what is the Ann Arbor New Art, New Artists program?
So this is a program that's been established since 2006. You'll find it on Ingalls Mall in the Ann Arbor Street Art Fair, the original. It's a program where we have Michigan college students, and it's an opportunity to sell their artwork. And it's absolutely free to them. They've received guidance from people like John Stanley, who was the former director of the Whitney Museum, the Toledo Museum of Art, and he sits with them and helps mentor all of their work. And so it's a very exciting program. And my favorite part is that they get to keep 100% of their earnings and use those to further their careers.
I love that. We got to make sure we pay the artists so they can actually be paid for their work. So thank you for that. And right now we're chatting with Angela Klein, the executive director of the Ann Arbor Art Fair, and Jake Block. He's a Grand Rapids-based furniture designer. Jake, we're bringing you in. Go into furniture making. When did you decide that you wanted to be a furniture builder?
Well, the craft actually originated in the family. So all the way back to my great-grandfather, they've been cabinet makers. And I took it to a little more artistic level after studying furniture design at Kendall College.
And so when we think about studying, or I think about studying furniture or wood making in general, and I think about you taking it that next step and turning it into something that's a little bit more artistic, what was the idea or the thought process behind doing it a little bit more of an artsy way versus just hey, here's a cabinet?
That's a good question. I've always been the artistic one in the family. I study a lot of nature and just like the more organic elements to it compared to cabinet making, which is more architectural.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you run your business as well in Grand Rapids with your wife. It's a small family business. If you can just go into that just a little bit, it's a J Block Studios with your wife, Rachel. And so when did you guys decide to open up that and really continue on that legacy of your ancestors?
Well, the third year of my college was really where it started. Actually, the Ann Arbor Art Fair NANA program was extremely big springboard in that. I displayed in the NANA program that year and was quite successful. And we said, let's make a go for it. We got married a week later, and here we are with 4 children and still doing it and bringing all 4 down there.
I love that so much. It's a whole family thing now. I love that. So as you've been, just like you said, you were in the NANA program, you got to showcase your work, get paid for your work, and you've been working with the Ann Arbor Art Fair since. So how long have you been working with the Ann Arbor Art Fair?
The year I did it was a NANA artist was 2012, and I've done it every year since, except for the couple of years it didn't run for COVID. So
yeah.
about
That's
12
amazing.
years.
That's amazing. So you've continued that legacy on. And do you see yourself now in a position, number one, to be a person who's making sustainable furniture? I think about just furniture making in general and the sustainability of it. Do you see yourself in that position? And in what way has the Ann Arbor Art Fair helped you continue that?
Yes, this is what I do. So it's sustainable so far. Future's unknown.
Yeah.
The Ann Arbor Art Fair has just been amazing. Every year I reconnect with past and future clients. A lot of my work is custom made for individual people. So seeing people face to face, the chance to not only display my art, but speak with the client and the client be able to speak with the artist, that's really a great opportunity.
Yeah. And so we're going to go back to Angela here. Thank you, Jake. Angela, what important information or anything about the Ann Arbor Art Fair, especially this year, should people know? Like how much is it, parking or anything like that?
Well, yes, and just wanted to clarify quickly, so that you can find Jake Block in the NANA program. He will be located at the Burton Tower at the Ann Arbor Street Art Fair, because I want you to find him. He's amazing. His work is absolutely exquisite fine art and fine craft. So what's very special about the Ann Arbor Art Fair, again, is that we're, nearly 1,000 artists over 30 blocks. So you're going to need some help coordinating. The best way to do that and check parking and a hotel and all of that great information is the AnnArborArtFair.com. Because it's such a large space and you'll want to know which area you're coming to. But if you want to take a shuttle, that's a beautiful way to get here. You can go to Huron High School and park and ride our air-conditioned motor coaches to the fair, or Briarwood Mall also has air-conditioned motor coaches. So that's one way. But you can get all of that information at the AnnArborArtFair.com.
Executive Director of the Ann Arbor Art Fair, Angela Klein, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks for having me.
And Jake Block partly owns and operates J Block Studios with his wife, Rachel Block. Jake is also a longtime creator in the Ann Arbor Art Fair and a NANA participant. Jake, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro, and have a great art fair.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It is the Metro on 101.9 WDET. Raining outside right now, and rain will continue through the afternoon with a high of 72. Tomorrow, partly cloudy with temperatures reaching 82 degrees. Tia, it looks like we need the rain in order to cool us down with the heat that we've been dealing with right now.
Yeah, the heat will return. Not unfortunately, I like the heat. However, 72 degrees, Nick, I'm like fall winter outfit right now.
I remember reading a story once that said 72 degrees was the optimal temperature for human beings. So like when you hit your thermostat between that 68 to 72, it's a magic number for you.
It's way too cold for me. But it's not just people that are getting hot during these heat waves. We have to remember, Nick, that animals also feel it too. So make sure you're bringing your furry friends inside. NPR's Steve Inskeep spoke with Dr. Sandra Fay of the American Veterinary Medical Association about what animals need to handle the heat.
Do pets have more trouble with heat than people do?
Absolutely. So if it's hot outside for you, it's most likely even hotter for your pet. And when in doubt, leave them at home. I know we love having them with us, but we'd rather have them healthy at home.
Why is it worse for the pet? I don't understand.
So, they have there's different factors. Age can be a factor. The older your pet, the more they struggle. The more overweight your pet, the more they struggle. And, anatomically, they're all a little different. So those pets, whether it's a dog or cat with a short nose, a pushed in face, they definitely have more trouble managing the heat.
Now, there are things that people maybe imagine that they can do should you, for example, shave your dog's thick fur, thick hair in summer.
Yeah, so it sounds like that would make sense, but it actually doesn't help. Their fur does help protect them, and it also protects them from sunburn. They can get sunburn just like we can, so shaving them puts them more at risk.
Oh, this reminds me of something. When I am in an extremely hot environment, I go out sometimes, I'm reporting in like desert or arid areas, I will tend to wear long sleeves and long pants. I don't want to have exposed skin. It's the same with a pet, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. So there are specific suntan lotions for pets, but again, it's so better to leave them inside. If you need to take them out, give them a walk in the morning, give them a walk in the evening, before it's super, super hot, and keep them inside and cool in that air conditioning or in front of a fan during the day.
I'm just guessing you're a pet owner?
I am. I have 2 dogs with lots of hair. They're more winter dogs. They're actually mountain dogs.
So how they been doing?
They hate this. And, one of the things that has really helped is really brushing them out. So you mentioned shaving. It's much better to brush out that hair, get all the hair that they would have shed so that they have their normal coat. And that makes them so much more comfortable.
What are the signs that I should look for that the dog or cat is just getting too hot?
Yeah. Well, first off, you know your pet best. So anything out of the ordinary, you really need to take note of that. But they'll often so this is dogs actually, they'll often get anxious or restless. Dogs normally pant, but they'll excessively pant or be drooling. And when it gets real severe, you might see some vomiting, diarrhea, and then even collapse. Cats are a little different. The first thing and often the only thing you see is open mouth breathing. And for a cat, that is an emergency. So you need to take them to the vet right away. Again, when in doubt, give your vet a call or take them in.
I'm also thinking that some of the tips for humans must apply to pets. If I'm going outdoors, if I'm going for a run or something in this weather, I'm looking for a shady path. I'm trying to stay out of the direct sunlight.
Absolutely. Shady, give them water. And, you mentioned running. Keep them off the hot pavements because that can really hurt their paws. We think their paws are tougher than ours, and maybe a little bit, but they can still blister in this heat. So keep them off the pavement, keep them on grass or sandy dirt paths.
That was NPR's Steve Inskeep speaking with Dr. Sandra Fay of the American Veterinary Medical Association about how to keep your pets cool during a heat wave.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. Earlier, we discussed how Detroit is forming such a vibrant artistic community. It's always been here. It's growing even more so. And that includes the world of photography. There is a photographer inspired by the city of Detroit who has a new gallery, a new project that's on display at Michigan Central. We'll learn more about that piece as well as the city that inspires his work when we return.
Welcome back to the Metro, right here on 1019 WDET FM. And like Nick said, art is thriving in the city of Detroit right now.
Yeah, we've seen it on display several places. Musically, even with that big concert that happened at Michigan Central Station, we got to see a lot of performers with legacy connections here. But that's not the only way art is being displayed in that space right now, giving some creators a chance to get their work out to more people. And one of the folks that has an exhibit in that space is Justin Millhouse, who's a Detroit-born photographer, videographer, and creative director operating out of the Woodbridge neighborhood. His Faces of Michigan Central exhibit showcases portraits of some of those behind the station's past and its present renovation. To learn more about his work, he joins us now. Justin, thanks for coming to the Metro.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so before we get into this piece as well as just the inspiration through Detroit, I want to get a little bit more about your inspiration and what led you into photography, because for you it seems like a little bit of a family affair inspiration led to this.
Yeah. So growing up, I have to always give credit to my granddad. He got me into the arts really early. Had me going to the Detroit Institute of Arts, and I would have to do these projects and about different artists and everything. At the time, I didn't like it, but down the line, I felt like that would inspire just my artistic eye. And then when I was in school, I started a blog showcasing students and their creativity. And with that blog, I said I need to get a camera so I can capture these things. And then that just spiraled into a passion to just capture and tell stories, not only for my peers, but just the world around me. Yeah. So,
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Do you think this is just hyperbole, or do you think there's any truth to that? If I say that phrase to you, what does that mean, and how does it show up in your work?
I feel like it's a cliche thing, but it is definitely worth 1,000 words. I think with photography, it's an instrument. The camera is an instrument to freeze time. Mm. So you always capturing history, and I think a great photo, the viewer can create their own story. You can the person, the photographer can take a photo and it can mean this, but I think good art is when you have different people coming in and making their own stories.
Yeah.
So that's where those 1,000 words come from, 1,000 thoughts from others too.
Yeah.
So.
You know, and we're going to get into the new gallery that you have coming up, but I've just got to learn a little bit more about where Detroit and the city fits into the work that you do. Because, you know, I know you went out of state for college, but you came back here, you set up shop here, and you've been taking photos not only of Detroit, but Detroiters over time. So for you, I mean, what have you seen in that progression? And you talk about kind of being a historian. What is it about Detroit that informs or inspires, or what does it do to your work?
I think honestly, it's me being from here.
Yeah.
I've always been inspired. Goes back to like my family. My family growing up had a lot of pride and still does have a lot of pride for the city. Before I went to college, I wasn't taking photos. So I always say when I came back, it's like I saw the city again, through a different lens.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. And, the city is changing. But, I think with like the photos I took back in like 2011, 2012, like for instance, like Cass Corridor, which is like Little Caesars Arena now, right. That's history now. That area, those photos I have of that area is history now. So, and then just the different neighborhoods. I have this photo, dual part photo that I have where I took a photo from my granddad's apartment at the Jeffersonia looking at West Village in the fall. And then I waited like maybe a few months later and took that same image in the winter. So just showing like even the changing of the seasons, just people and the seasons change. So I like to capture it all with that.
So I'm listening to you talk. Justin, I always ask, where are people from when they say they're from the city?
Yep.
Where are you from?
Oh, Detroit.
Yeah,
West Side, 7 Mile Livernois.
I always do that because I love to hear the cross sections when Detroiters say that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that so much. But Justin, just hearing you talk about your grandfather, the legacy, going to college, coming back, like most of us, when we go to college, we come back to Detroit. It's like it is new. It's fresh to us again. And it's just like I have to relearn my city a little bit because it's just like I haven't been here in a while. So you're coming back, you're learning your city again through the lens, and you're becoming an anthropologist, and you're not even know. Like you're an anthropologist through with your camera. So what does that feel like, telling Detroit's history with your camera?
I mean, it feels good. I feel like the work isn't done. I feel like I'm always going to be taking photos, but it feels good. Honestly, like I feel like I'm just following my granddad's footsteps. He has photos. He has boxes and boxes of photos that he took of of around Detroit in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So I'm just continuing a legacy with this, and I mean it's a natural thing, 3 days go by, and if I'm not just out, like just taking photos of maybe the same place. That's what I like about street photography too, especially, in the ever changing, like how Detroit is changing too. It's like you can go to the same place throughout the week and you'll get a different photo because it's different people. It's different. It's a different energy every time.
When you do street photography, asking for a friend, like are you going up to, you capturing the candids of the people? Do you go up and be like, hey, can I get a shot? But then they're out of the moment, or do you try to just sneak it in there? I mean, what are the ethics here for street photography, man? How are you doing it? Running and gunning? Are you talking to the folks? What's going on?
So I'm more of a run and gun.
Yeah.
I kind of like capture it and keep going. But it kind of depends on my mood. Sometimes if I'm like, all right, I want to get portraits of people and like kind of, it just depends on my mood. Sure. If I want to tell a story a different way, then I'll let them know. But with the street photography, I think some of those just candid moments and just capturing at the time, sometimes you can't even like direct and plan it. You just got to capture it. So that's the fun with I think photography, because there's so many different
You took
lines.
notes, right, Nick? You were taking notes for your friend, right? Just for your friend.
For my friend.
Yeah.
Friend's going to love that. But, speaking of portraits, you've got this set up now with the Faces of Michigan Central exhibit that's happening at Michigan Central Station. Sir. People can go there and see it Fridays and Saturdays through August 31st. So that's a setup event, right? That's where you got a time to talk to the people, take portraits captured in time. Could seem a little artificial, just a corporate headshot. What's the difference between just taking photos of people and trying to tell a story there? What were you trying to do?
I mean, honestly, knowing their story and really connecting with them. I like to, when I'm doing that type of photography, portrait photography, whether it's in a studio or with lighting or where we have some time, I like to first talk to the person for like 5 to 10 minutes to get them comfortable, because I think with that, with them being comfortable, you get an authentic image. And you know, people are nervous. I'm nervous in front of cameras. That's why I'm a photographer. I'm on the other side of it.
Same for me, Justin. Yeah. Maybe that's our little secret.
Yeah. So just talking to them and just, you know, really connecting with them. And, you know, when you really got that connection, the photo is like the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's capturing that moment in time, as you mentioned, doing the work of getting that rapport. But then let's get into the idea of people who are interested in photography. You mentioned it yourself a little, or alluded to it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes this gear ain't no joke. It's a little expensive. You know, figuring out how to get your best shots, even though you can take wonderful photos with cameras that aren't quite as expensive. But for people who are trying to get in it, outside of just the technical, what advice would you have for folks who are looking at this career?
I would say keep shooting, learn. I always never stop learning. You always want to just learn techniques, have fun with it. You know, like I think the best artists are having fun with it. Mm-hmm. You know, and you can start off with anything. I mean, I know we have, you know, camera phones and whatever you have. You don't need to go out and buy the most expensive equipment, because 70 years ago, that wasn't the most expensive equipment. We have classic photos forever. So I think just being genuine with it and going in and having fun and, you know, telling a story. And how can you capture something and tell your own story?
That's right, Justin. We won't tell the story about how I bought a camera with a mirror on it when that became obsolete and everybody moved to mirrorless digital. We won't tell that story. About how I have a mirrored camera and a digital camera from like 1 year between each other. Go ahead.
I shot Michigan Central with the DSLR, you know, so it's like, you know, I mean, it depends, you know, and then you got film cameras, which just, you know, it's a playground. So, you know, you find out what works for you, you know, and you can never stop learning. That's why.
See, Tia, it's not that I'm using obsolete technology. It's vintage.
Vintage. That's what I was going to say. You're like, oh, my camera's old. No, it's not. Historical.
But the old is good, though. Mm-hmm. Old is good. You get a different feeling with those older cameras than you with the newer ones.
You know what, Justin Milhouse? You can come back.
Okay.
Anytime.
All right. Please have me back.
Anytime.
Detroit-born photographer, videographer, and creative director Justin Milhouse, thank you for joining us on the Metro.
Really appreciate you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. And like I said, the Faces of Michigan Central exhibit, you can find that at the station Fridays and Saturdays. That's going to be there all the way through August 31st.
This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. And, you know, I'm thinking about you and Justin just talking like, oh, I don't want to be in front of the camera. Yeah. I'm okay. Go ahead and snap.
Oh, no, that's your world.
Snap,
I know.
Snap.
Very comfortable.
Yeah, well, let's do this.
Well, if I was as stunning as you, Tia, I would be that comfortable also.
Oh, my God. I feel like the Wicked Witch of the West right now. But thank you, Nick. And, you know, coming up on the Metro, we'll discuss what's going on with the Smart Politics event WDET is hosting in Berkley. It's happening tonight at 7 p.m. Stay right there for more. Welcome back to the Metro here on 101.9 WDET FM, and we're talking smart politics.
That's right. And, you know, the smart money would not have been on this being such a odd and interesting election season in our presidential candidacy going into November. A lot of things happening with the fallout from the debate, people questioning whether President Biden should stay in the race, as well as wondering about former President Donald Trump's propensity to sometimes tell fibs during his presentation. So with so many things happening, one of the ways for you to find out more about what some of the smart people are thinking about in this space are with the Smart Politics event that's happening tonight. To preview that event, we have the host and guest of the event with us, starting off with Jerome Vaughn, the news director here at the station, who's hosting the event at the Rind Bar in Berkley at 7 p.m., as well as Matt Friedman, one of the panelists who's the co-founder of Tanner Friedman, a public relations firm in Farmington Hills. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the Metro.
Glad to be with you.
We're going
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to start with you, Jerome, just at the beginning. For those of you who don't know, or us who don't know, what's the Smart Politics event? What's going to happen at this?
Well, the whole idea is for folks to get together in a relaxed atmosphere where they can, get something to eat, get a drink, talk to some folks who are interested in politics, and hear from some experts like Matt, who, have some things to say about what's going on in the election world. We had a Smart Politics event in February before the presidential primary, and much like with that event, things changed dramatically between, the planning of the event and then when we actually had the event. By the time the primary rolled around in February, there wasn't a contest really on either side. And so same this time around. We were thinking, there'll be some talk about the debate. We didn't know what the debate would be like, and we were surprised. And so what we'll be doing, this time around really is talking less about the candidates, less about Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but more about the people who really matter, and that's the voters. And so we'll be talking about, what Matt and others think about what voters are hearing, how they're processing it, things ranging from the importance or detriment of AI to misinformation.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons you bring in a guy like Matt, who I know you're really good looking into that voter information data, which people want to know now, because after the debate, people are wondering about the polls afterwards. Has there been any change? What can we extract from that? Give us a little bit of a insight, tease into this evening's event, Matt. What have you seen from the voter data since the debate? Is there any change? What do you got?
Yeah, of course, there's polling data that we'll talk about. But the interesting thing in terms of voter information I'm interested in talking about tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it, are some of the nonprofit campaigns I've had a chance to work on, nonpartisan campaigns over the last few years to make sure that voters understand their options. Voters in the state of Michigan have gradually increased options for voting since 2018. And a lot of people voted for these proposals to amend the state constitution, but then haven't paid much attention since. So absentee voting has been expanded. The use of drop boxes and other convenience items for voting around communities has been expanded. And the big one this year is early voting, being able to go into a precinct or go into a township hall or a city hall and cast your vote well before Election Day, and that vote will be tabulated right there on the spot, so we're not going to have a mirage effect on election night that maybe we had in Michigan in 2020.
Now you're saying
these are the things.
Is that because
things that I'm interested in talking about?
Yeah, is that because you say the mirage effect because it gets counted early, so we'll have that tabulated so people can feel a little bit more confident, I guess, in real time without seeing a big shift happen? Is that what you're referring to?
That's exactly right. In fact, on behalf of a campaign that I'm the spokesman for and have the privilege of working media relations for called Detroit Votes, we had an event with the clerk in the city of Detroit just a few weeks ago, and the clerk's office talked about they're only going to need one shift of counting workers on election night in November to make sure that ballots get counted. That's because of early voting and pre-processing and other things that are going to get results in sooner and get accurate vote totals in sooner. We're going to know more on election night. Now, in order for this to work, we need to vote and take advantage of the options presented to us. Yeah. And so I'll look forward to talking about some of the PR tools we're using.
Sure. Matt, real quick, I only got like 30 seconds left, but I want to put a real big pin on this. So what effect does this early voting have on voting? Do we see it move more people to participating? Real quick, about 30 seconds if you can.
Yes, that's the objective, is that we all should feel more comfortable and have more confidence in voting with all of the options available to us. It doesn't just have to be in person on Election Day anymore.
All right. And Jerome Vaughn, again, that's going down at the Rind Bar in Berkley, 7 p.m. I'll give you the last word, 15 seconds.
3125 12 Mile. Come on by. If you'd like to, you can sign up online at WDET.org, or you can just drop in.
Beautiful. All right, that's going to do it. Jerome Vaughn, WDET's news director, Matt Friedman, co-founder of Tanner Friedman. Thank you both for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks, Nick.
That was the Metro for Wednesday, July 10th. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
The show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt with additional support from Anel Scott and Sydney Walkley. Our engineer's Nate Bender, and the music's by Sam Bobian and Will Sessions.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at WDET.org/donate.
It's WDET FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.